Have you ever wondered how much cash you should have on hand? On one side of this, you could have $100 bills, greenbacks, $20 bills, actual physical cash on hand. The other side of this, you can look at how much do you have liquidity that is sitting in savings account, because of course, if you have cash on hand and you have liquidity just sitting in a savings account, chances are you could be losing money with having the money in there. Now, how much should you have if you're still working? This is going to be a big changing factor, because when you have a steady income, 9 to 5 job, you're getting paid every week, you're getting paid every 2 weeks. There's a stage of life where you should be putting a certain amount of this cash away for your financial goals. This could be retirement, this could be college savings, this could be the high yield money that you want to put away for an extended amount of time. And of course, this makes a big difference again, depending where you are in your life cycle. If you're 20s and 30s, less cash would probably be a little bit better. When you start getting into 50s and 60s, might make sense to be sitting on a little bit more cash if it's physical or if it is in a financial institution. Now, of course, this is not including an emergency fund. The emergency fund is cash or money that is sitting in a quick access spot, which means high yield savings account, unexpected medical expenses, car repairs, a job loss, anything like that is going to be able to tide you over for a number of months if you're saving 3 to 6 months of your expenses and having that in liquid cash. Now, of course, when you start looking at your expenses, housing, food, healthcare, utilities, discretionary, you want to sock away 3 to 6 months in that emergency fund, like we were saying, and you want to automate the emergency fund savings. This is something that a lot of people just completely overlook, is the automated investing into essentially investment accounts, but also the automation going into savings accounts that's building up the emergency fund. What is perfect and what is good about an emergency fund? It is completely accessible exactly when you need it. If you need a home equity, if you need a loan, if you need anything else, you want to make sure that you have the cash on hand. So how much cash should you have if you're retired? This again is going to be a different life cycle. When you think the basic kind of stays true, having that 3 to 6 months of an emergency fund, but now you're going from a regular 9 to 5 to an absolute fixed income, which is a little bit crazy because again, your budget, your cash flow, kind of everything changes. Now, some experts believe it is 12 months of cash on hand at this point because of the retirement, because of the limited savings. So having a considerable more or a considerably higher emergency fund, because when you start getting the stage of life, when you're looking at 60s, 70s, 80s, chances are you're going to have a lot of medical bills. Now, really for me personally, to counteract this and having a ton of cash is why I'm building up my HSA account. If we can get, $30, $40, $50,000 into an HSA account, that is going to essentially act as my emergency fund just for the medical portion. So if I have 3 to 6 months of an emergency fund, great. We know we're on a fixed income. That is going to be the savings. If I have, 3 to 6 months, let's say, build up in that HSA account, I can literally cover probably months, if not years, of expenses between those, because of course, still going to receive Social Security. I'm still going to have an income source, even though I am retired. So how much cash should you keep at home? This again is a very interesting question, because of course, because of the pandemic, a ton of people took out literal cash, $20 bills out of ATMs, $100 bills out of financial institutions. It's wise to keep $100, $200, up to probably about $500 on hand, because also remember, cash is a depreciating asset with the reduction of the buying power due to inflation. So essentially, let's say for instance, you have $1,000 at home. Next year, you have $1,000 at home. You can't buy the same stuff as you could the previous year. Fast forward, let's say 5 years, you still got that $5,000 at home. Guess what? Now your buying power has been reduced by about 15 or 20% just because of inflation, keeping that. For some people, they're keeping mammoth amounts of cash on hand at home, which of course, if you need money to fill up your gas tank, anything of that, if you're paying cash, having a little bit more makes sense. But overall, you're losing money due to inflation if you're sitting on a bunch of cash. Now, how much cash should you keep in your wallet? Again, this is really going to vary if you're carrying debit cards, if you're carrying credit cards, but having a little bit, even a 20, a 50, 100, whatever it might be, because there are some things that, one, I don't feel safe not paying in cash or using my debit card or credit card, because there are a lot of shady places just being north of Detroit. Two, if there's little things, some places only take cash in their entirety, where on the flip side, we've actually seen a lot of things even on school that do not take cash at all. Not even a penny, meaning you have to pay everything electronically. Now, also remember, because of some of the mobile payment apps, if you're using some of those, They do have a fee on some of the apps that you might use to pay for things. There could be a surcharge, there could be a usage charge, there could be a couple different things that essentially come with the cash that you're spending. So where should you spend and store your cash? This is another big one, guys. When you look at the day-to-day money in a checking account, this is going to be your monthly expenses. So what we say, look at your monthly expenses, usually about double it. So let's say your monthly expenses are $3,000, keeping roughly, I would say $5,000 to $6,000 in a checking account, kind of liquid. That way, if an unexpected expense does come up, you still have the liquid cash in your checking account. You have easy access to it with your debit card. Now, of course, when it comes to the emergency fund, this you have to have in a separate savings account. In a high yield savings account is the where and the place to put it. I have a link down below for M1 Finance. They have a 5% return on a savings account, which is the way that you want to keep it. And you do want to keep it separate, meaning that you don't have money in your checking account and then of course link to a savings account, meaning that in a click of a button, you can move over whatever money that you need if you're not budgeting properly, or if you feel like a need or a want arises that you want extra money for, that gives you very, very easy access to it. The emergency fund you want in a separate account that you have access to, but not as free as the temptation to just transfer over the money. Keeping cash in account, of course, FDIC 100%, you want to make sure the money is in there. If you're going credit union, it is the NCUA that is going to be protecting your funds. And most of the basic ones are up to $250,000. So definitely knowing your bank or your credit union to store the funds. But like I was saying, for a lot of institutions, you do have access to debit cards, you have access to credit cards, you have access to cash that is readily available. Now for me, I think this is one of the big reasons why impulse spending is so big when it comes to spending cash. And guys, I really challenge you to do this, is take cash out of your bank, see what it feels like to actually spend cash. So there's been studies, there's been a lot of proven things, even referring to Dave Ramsey, that individuals that use debit cards or credit cards in specific, spend about 18% more than people who use debit cards and cash. That has been proven. So if you want a way to save more money, if you want to build up that emergency fund, if you want to start investing, very, very good way to do it is one, cash envelope method, using your debit card if that is the way you have to pay for it, but managing your checking account, making sure you're not overdrawing it, that you have enough money essentially to cover all of your expenses with cash or a cash account like a checking account versus using the credit card. Because what happens is credit cards, people don't treat as real money, which again is kind of crazy, but it goes back to the psychological factors. When you're swiping a piece of plastic that is not tied to your actual money, that is not tied to physical cash or an account that actually has a balance, a cash balance, doesn't matter how many times you swipe it, it feels completely different when you're using that payment method. So guys, definitely think about it. And it's something that I really had to take a step back, think about it on how much cash do we actually have access to? How much should we have? And of course, if you're sitting on a lot of cash, like we were saying, chances are you're losing money by sitting on that. And of course, people always said that cash is king. However, invested cash is what builds wealth. And when you start looking at generational wealth, it is about the consistent dollar cost averaging investments into funds like the S&P 500, the VOO, the spider funds. Investing into those ETFs will turn tenfold in literally doubling your money in 7 years, which is kind of crazy to think, but your cash will not do that when it's sitting at a financial institution. So, all right, guys, so that is going to do it for today's video. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. And as always, thank you guys for watching.